Hello, YouTube, back again, and today we're going to talk about a couple of different things, but the main theme of this video is betrayal trauma. So, betrayal trauma can mean quite a few different things. It could be like, you found out your husband was cheating on you, but he's been cheating on you for the past 20 years. Or you find out your husband's cheating with you, but he's actually cheating with your sister or your best friend. It's that, I don't want to say more intense, but almost like a whole nother ball game when it comes to, I don't know, dealing with betrayal. It's not just being cheated on, it's not just being lied to. It's like systematically someone doing the same thing over and over and over again, without you knowing for however long, and just how much it can rock your world, I guess. So how I really realized this kind of applied to me, I guess, was past 16 years I've been in um, talk therapy. I've done EMDR. I've been on medications for my mental health. I've done my own research on trauma and CPTSD, or developmental trauma, um, and looked more and more into myself, because I've realized that, okay, my mother being an enabler to my father and my sister and an abuser herself, I was never going to get a straight answer from her. I was never going to get the truth. Maybe pieces and parts, but she was very careful on what she answered and how, in terms of to never make herself look bad. And the fact is, when you're involved in all of this, that means you have to leave a lot of stuff out. So it's like going through the motions of these things and then realizing, okay, well, I'm connecting these dots, but then there's a couple of them, they're just kind of free floating out there, and I can't seem to make connections for those. Um, it it was kind of world rocking. This was actually recently that I kind of came upon this, but going over and trying to do the trauma work and the healing work for childhood sexual abuse I endured, physical abuse, emotional abuse, um, and just when I finally like began listening to my body, connecting the dots, going back on things that my mom had told me when she was intoxicated. Because, I mean, it doesn't always stand true, but the saying drunken words are sober thoughts kind of plays here. Because then her personally would tend to say stuff. She would, for once, be truthful about things. And even years ago, things that she had told me by kind of accident, and that maybe at that point in my healing I was not able to kind of connect the dots and really think about it then. But came to realize that most of my childhood was a lie, in terms of the fact that, oh, it was all of my family was a problem minus my mother. No, she was a part of it, and she enabled every other abuser in that household. She minimized and silenced the abusees, i.e., me. Like, a common thing was, when I was 12, my father cracked my rib. I don't remember what exactly was said, but evidently he did not like it. He turned around, fist like this, punched me in the rib, and cracked my rib. I went to my mother, of course, like freaking out, and just got told, oh, you need to stay away from him. So then that somehow put the blame on me, that, okay, my cracked rib, this assault that just happened to me, was somehow my fault because I was not actively avoiding my father. Like, what I'm saying? Placing that blame where it's not due to, oh, gee, enable the abuser to do more. It's not their fault or their responsibility for their actions and or reactions. It is everyone else's responsibility to avoid them. Yeah, doesn't sound right. Um, but going through all of this, I realized many, many things. Maybe we'll get to that in another video. But something like, okay, I'm laying with my husband and he's like doing like the ASMR tingles on my back, okay? Just like real light touches and it gives you like the goosebumps, but it's very relaxing. And I had noticed and said something to him. I'm like, huh, I wonder why my pelvic floor, my, pelvic area gets tight when you touch me and I'm laying on my stomach, but not when I'm on my back. And this caused more stuff to come up and more stuff. The following night, I was really thinking about these things and doing tarot readings, which I don't know how many of you are informed about tarot or use it. But for me, that is a tool I use to bring insight to myself, to heighten my intuition, and to help kind of figure things out about myself. It has been very useful to me. And doing a bunch of tarot readings. I'm going through photo albums. I'm ruminating in my mind about every single thing that was said by my mother on this subject, like almost like a full on like FBI investigation inside of my head, just trying to grasp like trying to catch her in it, I guess I'll say, because she's never been exactly the beacon of truth. Um and a lot of stuff came up. I had to wake up my husband at 5 o'clock in the morning and kind of let this all out on him because this was, I'm only 28 and this was like probably 25-year-old trauma um, that came up. And a side note, too, um, always trust your body. Always, always, always trust your body. I don't care what anybody else says because the fact is, for my predicament, okay, when I would know in my heart and soul that something happened and it happened a certain way, but then I was repeatedly gaslit and, oh no, it wasn't that bad, or oh, her favorite was, I don't remember that. Convenient because it's burned into my memory for the rest of my life. But tough subject. But all the stuff that came up, just, I guess, there was no question about it, for one thing. And I feel like some people maybe a little earlier on their healing journey, or people that have still a lot of these enablers and abusers around them, might be taught not to trust that. How it feels is your answer, whether it's yes or no. Like if a traumatic memory comes up and you lose it, like, how I describe it is, because it's quite frightening for other people, is, I could be sobbing and crying, screaming mercilessly um over something coming up, but it's not me now. You know what I'm saying? It's not how I feel now. It's the fact is I went through whatever it is, so I can definitely survive remembering it. It's not easy, not even close to it. But I paid attention to my body, paid attention to these things and their reactions, and that's whether you decide whether, okay, this is how it happened or not, because you lived it. And a common thing I got from my mother was I would talk about stuff and I'm like, no, you actually do not get it. So I lived there too. But you weren't a child. You know what I'm saying? When you go through trauma as an adult, okay, say you experience a sexual assault, a car accident, maybe you witness the death of a loved one, and it really sticks with you. It truly like breaks your world. in that case, you do have some stuff to kind of draw back on, you know what I'm saying? That little toolbox that therapists work so hard to kind of fill up for us so we can cope and um, deal with these things in a healthy manner. You might have some of those to kind of pull on. But when you go through trauma as a child, it is vastly, 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 vastly different. And I am telling you this as someone that survived trauma as a child and survived trauma as an adult. So, um, it's just so vastly different because, in terms of like, okay, like in my experience, like, okay, that I'm a little kid, my dad abuses me, and then my mom tells me just stay away from him. So then that opened the door to, you know, when sexual abuse was happening or worse things were happening, that I would not tell her, I would not tell anybody, because then I had the inclination that it was my fault. That somehow, as a child, I got myself into these predicaments. That is what kind of picture that paints when a child comes to you and you say that. Um, and a child has nothing to draw on. You know what I'm saying? They don't have that toolbox. They don't have a past set of experiences that they can, you know, kind of work through and help them work through the new thing. You know, they're kind of just coming into the world, just coming into coherence and whatnot. And it brings a whole host of problems, you know, self-doubt, self-blame. um I was one to isolate as a child. um I would stay in my room and I would only like truly be able to like get up, have fun, play with my toys, watch TV, do whatever when everyone else was asleep. That was the only time that I ever felt safe, was when everyone else was asleep. And it just brings a whole host of things that we will get into a little bit more later. um Looking at my notes here. Oh, and back to the main theme of betrayal trauma. I realized how much of like the good relationship I had with my mother was actually kind of curated by her, in terms of um, years and years and years of fostering that doubt inside me, that doubt on how I felt, um, gaslighting that, you know, things did not happen, doubling down on them. No, that really didn't happen. Or, oh, yeah, it happened, but it wasn't that bad. Like, you're remembering it wrong. Or, no, I did this, I did that. Or, uh, the thing that really kind of got me like really thinking about this stuff was she got remarried to my stepdad in 2018. And like he knows about my dad and all that good stuff. I don't know what is up with this right now. Um like he knows about my birth father and all that stuff, knows about a lot of stuff, but then hearing her, especially, it's been almost 9 years now they've been together, that she will tell these stories from, you know, her as a young parent, or, you know, when we were all little. And it, you know, of course she's telling it, she seems like a great mom. Like she was just trapped in that, just like we were. You know, she did no harm, you know, blah blah blah, it was all my father. And just realizing that she was in a way gaslighting herself as well as me. And then, you know what I'm saying, kind of telling other people that, so then I guess maybe remove credibility from her actual children when they bring shit up that might make her look guilty. But realize that this, oh, that, and a key thing too, and I just have to bring up, because I tell you, the tone and the face of narcissist, and my mother being a vulnerable narcissist, it's always the victim. You know, always down and depressed. Everything bad happens to her. The whole world is against her. Um, Yada yada. Brought up the fact of when I was younger, and my parents would back and forth, back and forth. We're getting a divorce. No, we're not. We're getting a divorce. No, we're not. And as a child, thinking, okay, finally free of him. Like, this is gonna get, it can only go up from here. We'd live in like somewhere else for a couple of months, or he'd move out for a couple of months, and there would be nothing said. It was just all of a sudden we were moving back, or he was moving back, and like we weren't told when and if we were moving, and we weren't told when and if we were moving back or he was coming back. And that was absolutely, like, it shattered my world every single time. To think that you were finally free of such a horrible person, that their behavior absolutely just disintegrates the self-worth and the soul of everyone around them. And that's okay, we're back. Oh, he's bad, we're leaving. Okay, oh, start to get used to like a little bit calmer life. Oh, we're going back. And I brought that up to her, like how much that hurt me. And all she said was, sorry. Talk about invalidation. Talk about go fuck yourself, bitch. Because how can you react to your child like that, telling you something that hurt them, and then it's just because you did it, then you take that hit. You can't take criticism. Remember, your comfort, your culpability, um is more important, and making sure that you keep that fake narrative for yourself, that even as an adult you will tear down your child no matter what. You don't care as long as you still look good, and you can still keep that false narrative going in your own mind about what type of mother you were, what type of person you were and are. um and especially that, and a couple other things in that same conversation, it hit me like I didn't know her. It was like I was talking to a stranger. Like, I'm trying to find the words. I realized that the mother I grew up, loving, and trying to protect her, from my father as when I was a child, that that was a false sense of love. I knew a long time ago that that was very codependent, even when I was a young adult. But to come to that and realize that the mother that I loved wasn't the one that I had, it was the one that I wish I had. And to put that into perspective, a kid cannot be like, oh, my mom's toxic, my dad's an abuser, they're narcissists. A kid can't fathom that. So a little kid, all this stuff happening, especially when they're being gaslit into thinking that they're the reason for their parents' abuse, then the only thing that the child can do is blame the self. It's me because I'm a bad kid. And what I talked about in one of my last videos was that, okay, like, I guess primally, like, just down to, being a human being, let alone being a child in a whole, is okay. This is your parent, this is you. You always look to your parent for protection, for guidance, for survival. So your child brain cannot disconnect that. So the more hurt and abuse and trauma and whatever that parent dishes out to you, you get closer. Because even though it's a parent that's hurting you, that is a natural thing that you go to your caregiver to be protected, I'm saying, for survival. And, that led to a codependent relationship, and also a lot of, I absorbed her false narrative into my mind as well, even though I knew, especially the older I get, I knew it didn't feel right. Um, but just that rug being ripped out from under me on top of everything else I've been through, after everything else I've worked through, and then to figure out that it's like, okay, there was a lot more that was gaslit um completely into the back of my archives, and hidden away on purpose for so long. My mother, she never knew me. Never ever ever knew me. And I never knew her, but I do now. I see her for what she is. I see the other people in my family for what they are. And a lot of the thing is people hate saying, "Oh, they're not a bad person. They went through some stuff." It doesn't matter. It does not matter. Regardless of the reason, the behaviors they exhibited, either a couple of times or fucking over a lifetime, if their patterns of behavior hurt you, you're not a good person. I don't care. Regardless of the reason, especially as an adult. Oh, well, your mom was abused too, domestic violence, it's harder to get out than you think. Yes, I'm aware of that, but it doesn't matter. It is the parents' responsibility 100% without a shadow of a doubt. No ifs, ands, or buts, especially if, the calls coming from inside the house, if the abuse is happening inside the house, you do whatever it takes, but not when you're a vulnerable narcissist. As long as you were okay, you can then use your children's pain, which a lot of you had a hand in, to then make people feel bad for you. Oh, I was in an abusive marriage and oh, my kids were abused. And then people pat her on the back and say, oh, you've been through so much, not realizing that she was complicit to all of it. That, she made conscious choices to abuse and she enabled two abusers under her roof. And the funny thing is my dad quit working in 2001. He got fired from his job for whatever reason and never worked again. She was the sole provider, head of household, whatever. He paid nothing. He wouldn't have been able to pay for a lawyer the last couple of times, but she stayed and finally divorced him after, I was already 18 and moved out, but then still cannot, no matter what, no matter how much I grow as a person or grow on my healing journey, it's like that betrayal trauma will always be there and there will always be salt poured into the wound as long as you are around them. I mean, yes, it's not viable for everyone to like just get away from people. If you live there, if you're a minor and you're kind of depend on your parents for survival, maybe you need a little more what I'm saying, you need financial help or yada yada to be able to escape that person. Yeah, there's lots of different ways, but that does not mean you have to then live in it and enable the behavior and let other people be harmed that cannot defend themselves, i.e., your children. And I guess in conclusion, betrayal trauma I feel like it's just, for me, has been just a wave of shame, of guilt, um, shame of myself for like, oh, these things happened to me, even though why should I feel shameful that these things happened to me at the hands of, trusted adults, and that other trusted adults were around to witness these things and then covered them up. Um, Even talking to my husband about it, talking to, my supportive best friend, who there's never any judgment when I bring up things because, they get it. They get the fact that, the simple thing, okay, if you're a child and your parent beats you and breaks your arm, that's not your fault for having a weak arm. That's the parent's fault for breaking it. Um, but I guess I even feel shame for telling people those things, like telling even my husband things about, my past being sexually abused, is we are groomed in that way, so we do not tell. This is not our shame. That's the way I like to think about it. This is not our shame. Like what I was talking to a little bit ago, in terms of like the when reliving trauma, how I like to put it, that these feelings are not mine. They're his. They're me when I was a child. I feel heard, I feel supported, um, I feel loved, I feel valued in myself now by the people I hold close in my life. But him, that's totally different. And for me, anyway, to kind of put that divider line there in a way that this was how he felt, which is also me, and this is how I feel, keeps me from disassociating, keeps me from, I guess, just kind of shutting it off in terms of like self preservation, all that good stuff. But believe your body, for one, out of anything. Any reactions that come up, try and sit with them. These are, I guess, kind of inside of you. But imagine if you went through childhood abuse. Imagine you're sitting next to, yourself at 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever the age or ages were that you sustained abuse. And these reactions that are coming up out of you, um, crying, screaming, downright just losing emotional control, it feels like some for me sometimes this stuff, it's not just a cry. It truly feels like, all this emotion is from like waist up, okay? And then there is a plunger like for like a syringe going up through my legs, and then once it opens, it just like it truly is coming up from like the depths of you. um that these are things that were from the past. That shame I feel about telling, say, my husband about my abuse, he doesn't judge me. He doesn't tell me it was my fault. He doesn't, oh, you shouldn't talk about that, people don't talk about that. That shame was put there by my parents, by my sister, by even abusers in adulthood that wanted to keep me silent. Because if you, the way Dr. Romney put it, I love this, I love this. Shame is a public emotion. So, like, when I feel shame, it's like my cheeks, my neck, my chest, almost like you put Bengay underneath your skin, like itchy, burny. You can feel it. You feel like other people can see the shame that feel like you're wearing. Like, oh, here's a bumper sticker. I'm shameful. Um, that was a cork that was popped right into the top of your head as a child. To, hey, see, this is how you feel right now, how I'm conditioning you to view this abuse as your fault. That way, the farther on in life you go, and the longer you carry this shame of what you went through, what was done to you won't say anything. You won't speak out. You won't speak out to or about your abusers about what happened because, how do I want to put it? That shame you feel about that abuse, it's almost like an assumption that other people are shaming you. You know what I'm saying? You have that such a strong self doubt and shame and guilt about an abuse that you almost, for me, anyways, when that comes up, I feel like, yeah, that's how they're viewing me too. Like, if I view myself like this, other people must. But that, it's like a little microchip, just sow that seed of doubt, blame, 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 I did this to you because of you, and you'll silence them forever, right? No, 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 because this lovely generation and every generation that comes after it seems to be more and more emotionally intelligent, seems to not take no for an answer. And that is such an amazing thing when it comes to dealing with abuse, because abusers rely on self doubt. They rely on instilling feelings of shame and guilt that all this is your fault. So if you truly believe that everything that happens to you is your fault, you would not speak up about it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's like if you go to prison for robbing a bank and then you're telling people in there, yeah, I robbed a bank, dude. Like, I can't believe I'm in here. It's like, okay, well, you robbed a fucking bank. So what did you expect? A parade? You know what I'm saying? So it's a way to forever silence you. And I have so much hope for the generations under me and the ones to come after, that they will take away all the power from these people. There will always be these types of people, narcissistic people, psychopaths, sociopaths, toxic people, whatever you want to call it. They will always be there, but we're getting stronger. You know what I'm saying? The people that have empathy, that have a heart, that were so crushed and so made to be a shell of their former selves, or if you were, a victim of developmental trauma, you never got to develop your true self. I'm almost 30 years old and I'm still, I'm like, oh my god, what do I want to do with my life? Like, what do I like? What don't I like? How do I feel about this? How do I feel about that? Because, my likes, my dislikes were not my own. It was things like, oh, you only like that because everyone else does, or oh, you're only jumping on the bandwagon. That's why you don't like this. Like, even my thoughts were not my own. My pain was not my own. And it's very, very disabling, especially as a child. Then you have to go as an adult, figure all this stuff out. And I'd say the biggest part of it for me has been finding my sense of self, not going back to it because I've never had it. It is finding it first, and it's always worth it. It's always, always, always worth it. And I will tell you too, this was going to be a second video, but I think we'll just throw it in here because it does correlate. Um, Believe in the trauma work. Believe in yourself. Believe your body when it speaks. Um, so like the story I told you a couple minutes back in the video about my husband giving me a massage and different bodily reactions that were uncomfortable yet familiar were coming up. And as you hone in that confidence in yourself, confidence in your perception, which I feel like that is such a big thing with trauma survivors, is they doubt their perception of reality. They doubt their perception of themselves, of other people. Hey, this person doesn't make me feel good. They hurt me, but everyone else is telling me they're a great person. So it must be me. I must be looking at this wrong. I must be experiencing this wrong. You're not. You're not. Um and I guess the big thing too about um trauma work and bodily sensations, which a lot I will forever say. The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. He's a Belgian psychiatrist. I read that book probably 11 years ago, and I'm still connecting dots and be like, hey, this is what was talked about in the book. Okay, this is making sense now. educate yourselves on this, because it will fuel your trauma work. It will fuel this healing journey. And the body sensations, like for instance, we'll go back to, 1819. So I was like getting to the crunch point, the absolute breaking point, I should say, of the abuse. And then directly after, as I was starting to experience such intense anxiety that I had never felt before. I honestly thought I was losing my fucking mind. And not just like, oh, racing thoughts, like whatever. It was full body sweating, heart pounding, that Bengay, like burny, itchy butterfly feeling in my chest, my face, my neck. Um, over seemingly nothing. Obviously, as years went on, I was able to spot things that triggered me, and also the thing that's called post traumatic stress for a reason, because a lot of times, this stuff isn't going to start to come up until you're out of that situation. Because, okay, I was probably 10, 12 years old until I realized that other people's parents didn't beat the fuck out of them over nothing. Others people's parents didn't sexually abuse them. Other people's families did not gang up and try and dismantle each other's sense of self over basically nothing. And when I didn't know what those bodily reactions are, when I didn't know, for instance, as an adult, I'm trying to have intimacy with someone, and you're realizing that, okay, back then, me not being able to be present, me completely cutting off at the neck and basically being a corpse, during the act, that all these things, these weren't just random. These weren't just random. These weren't like, oh my God, like, this again, like neighbor's trash blows into your yard on a windy day. This was like my body's way of trying to say, bro, like we got so much stuff in here right now. Like there's a reason for it. Like, please look. Please open this folder and look. It's like a classified CIA document, but of your past trauma. And the more I started paying attention to these, and not easy. I've had 2 inpatient hospitalizations. I've had years and years of therapy, years and years of trauma work, and I'm just really almost feeling maybe an 8 out of 10 confidence on what my body tells me, because you spend those years of being indoctrined to believe you're the problem or stuff didn't happen. Then it's like you're coming 2,000 years down the line trying to excavate, King Tut's tomb, when it's really your childhood that was hidden from you by the people that caused it to be traumatic. And how I really want to end this video, and I want to emphasize so much, is listen to yourself. Listen to your mind, listen to your body, not so much about others. Have your support system. I have one close friend that I've been friends with for 16 years. She's been through so much of this with me. Her, and then my husband. I have, one online friend I've had for years that we can talk about this kind of stuff, judgment free, support zone. But what I've learned is that it hurts you more a lot of times going back to the people from the original traumatic event, or from people that were in your childhood, maybe intertwined with the abusers, or maybe they did some abuse themselves. Maybe they were purely just an enabler. Whatever it is, do not rely on their recollection of events to tell you what happened, because you lived it. You lived it. You experienced that pain. You experienced that. No one else. No one experienced what you did. That is solely yours. The truth will come up. You got to search for it, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of connecting the dots, a lot of getting comfortable with yourself, reconnecting with your body. Because, like I said, cut off at the neck. Nothing else. Nothing else exists as protection. I can't feel the beatings if I'm disassociated. You know what I'm saying? One thing we used to do to my fathers once we got so old is we, instead of crying, we would inherently have the reaction to laugh when he was beating us, and that took his power away. You know what I'm saying? It hurt. It definitely hurt every time. But by not giving him that, the painful reaction, the screams, the cries, begging him to stop, he almost like quit hitting us because we laughed every time. And we'll get into all that in another video. But your truth is your truth. It's locked away in there. The dots you can't connect because you're missing that vital piece of information. It's in there. It's in there. And there are so many types of therapy, like talk therapy, group sessions, CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, DBT, with dialectal behavioral therapy, and EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. Um, and like I just studied the stare therapy method, which is a type of narrative therapy. So, like kind of rewriting, I guess, traumatic events, but you control the narrative, you control the outcome. Also, on like spotting, like in current day life, how I didn't get the job promotion even though I was qualified because someone was slightly more qualified, or maybe they had more experience in that company we were in, that'd be, a disappointment and a big disappointment. But then to, go into self blame and, I'm so stupid, I'm so worthless, I should have known I was never going to get that promotion, I should have known I'm not as good as my job as other people, like that kind of thing. That kind of thing is so much a product of what we came up with or what we were brought up with, but that is almost like you're trying to block a hole in a swimming pool using a paper plate. It might work kind of for a minute, but as you go on, as you open that door, doors, there's many segments to this. Open those doors and you get farther, that paper plate holding that trauma back is going to start to disintegrate. It's going to start to seep through, and then it's just going to bust through. You will find the answers inside yourself. Don't go to these people that'll instill more doubt. Go to yourself. Your therapist can help you with this. Do your research. I've suggested a couple of books that have personally helped me, and I'm hoping too that, this big online entity that is YouTube, like, comment. You don't have to comment personal things, comment questions, thoughts, beliefs. Send me a message. Let's open up the dialogue about childhood abuse, about childhood trauma, what it does to us in our adult lives, how these feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, fear in childhood still haunt us today and will be the determining factors in, what job we take, what opportunity we take or we don't take. All these things. It's so important. And I guess I'll say I lacked tact in these videos, and you will see more and more so, because there's so many things that people, I guess, don't speak about, because it's like, oh, like the reaction people have to that is, surprise, or they feel judged or whatever. No, because there is so many people out there like me. So many of you have went through abusive childhoods, whether it's physical, emotional, sexual, all of it, and people need to talk about it. So we will be back soon, and I hope to see you there.